Walk into a game store 20 years ago and $60 got you everything. You got all of Halo 2, you got all of Ocarina of Time, and Grand Theft Auto. You bought the disc, cartridge, and popped it into your console and that was it. And today that concept is pretty much gone. That same $60, which is more like $70 now, only gets you through the door. Modern gaming now looks free or cheap on the surface, but the real price hides inside the system. Microtransactions, loot boxes, and battle passes have turned gaming into a financial trap. Just buying the game itself isn't the full cost anymore. Companies have built new ways to keep you spending long after you've bought the game. And it works. In 2024, the gaming industry generated over $184 billion, which is more than movies and music combined. And most of that money doesn't come from selling games. It comes from nickel and diming you by selling skins, extra gold and gems inside games. And all of this matters for your wallet. Games have become services and not products, and publishers design them to keep you paying long after that very first purchase. Microtransactions sound harmless, just a few dollars here or there, but when you add them up across months and years, the cost climbs up faster and transactions are no longer micro altogether. And it's not just Fortnite or Genshin Impact. Apps outside of gaming, like Duolingo, now use these same design tricks to keep you hooked and spending. And this isn't about hating games. They're fun, I love games too, they connect people all across the world, and are a great way to just escape everything else that's going on in our lives. But the way companies price them creates financial traps that hurt players more than they realize. So today, we are talking about console games, mobile games, and how, mixed with consumerism and overconsumption, they can ruin your wallet. You used to pay once for a game and maybe bought an expansion pack later. But in the mid-2000s, Xbox introduced downloadable horse armor for Elder Scrolls Oblivion. It cost $250. And players laughed, but publishers saw something important, that people paid for it. And this one small experiment turned into an industry standard. And fast forward to today, a lot of games function more like platforms. Fortnite is free to download, but Epic Games made $9 billion in its first 2 years from players buying V-Bucks to unlock skins and emotes. And PUBG works pretty much the same, selling cosmetic outfits and battle passes. Candy Crush lets you play free levels, but constantly tempts you with boosters to speed things up. And by 2024, players worldwide spent over $111 billion on mobile in-game purchases alone. Genshin Impact, for example, made billions from gacha pulls, where players spend money for a chance at a rare character or weapons. And Call of Duty Warzone sells operators, weapon skins, and bundles that keep players paying season after season. And the business and math behind it is pretty simple. A one-time purchase of $60 for Kingdom Hearts has a ceiling. You pay $60, you own it, and that's it. But a free-to-play game has no limit, and even games you pay $60 now always has some kind of microtransaction purchase after the fact. But regardless, for the average player, whether it's free or you're paying an upfront cost, the hidden cost comes from that slow build-up. You tell yourself you're only buying one Fortnite skin or one Marvel Rivals Battle Pass, and months later, you've spent hundreds. And from just a few dollars here and there, players end up spending hundreds or even thousands of dollars. On the surface, $1 loot boxes or $5 skins don't seem like much, but publishers count on volume. If millions of players each spend a few dollars a month, the revenue becomes exponentially more than just the traditional $60 sale. And here's what it looks like from your side. Suppose you buy one $5 skin a week, that is $20 a month, or $240 a year. Add a $10 battle pass every single season and you've crossed $300. And for a lot of people, $300 equals a week of groceries and more. That's 2 monthly car payments for some families. And because psychologically, all of these changes feel small and spread out, you rarely see the full picture until you add them all up. Meanwhile, over half of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and 37% of adults can cover a $400 emergency without borrowing or selling something. So given that, hundreds of dollars in digital add-ons, whether it be gems or gold, or extra rolls in Monopoly Go, is pretty substantial. And all these microtransactions work because they exploit how your brain reacts to rewards. Games already thrive on dopamine, that little rush you get when you feel like you win a match, level up, or unlock rare loot. Add money to the system and it gets even more thrilling. Sound familiar? You pay for a chance at a rare item in a game like Valorant. And again, it's a chance, not a guarantee. And that uncertainty keeps you coming back in hopes that you do win. Psychologists call this variable ratio reinforcement, and it's the same idea of Pokemon cards, Labubus, and the lottery. You tell yourself it's just a couple bucks, but the system is designed to make it harder to stop, especially when the game is free, which of course is all part of the plan as well. Publishers market free-to-play games as generous. You don't pay upfront, which feels like a win. But free-to-play is one of the most profitable models in history. Studies show that just 1 to 2% of players account for more than half, and in some cases nearly 70% of all in-game revenue. And you're probably saying that's not me, I don't spend thousands. For most people, the spending is smaller, but it still adds up. The average US gamer spends $325 a year on gaming, which doesn't sound like much, and compare that to the median US household income growth, which has stalled since the 2000s. Wages haven't kept up with rent, food, or healthcare, let alone your Fortnite skins. And people used to buy games as an escape. Look at Pokémon Go. It launched in 2016 as a free app. In 2020, it made over $1 billion in revenue in a single year. Or take Clash of Clans. Since its launch in 2012, it has pulled in more than $7.7 billion in lifetime revenue. And this isn't Halo or Mario. They're mobile apps that make fortunes by charging small amounts over and over. And this whole model has spread far beyond traditional games. Look at Duolingo, the popular language learning app. On the surface, it's educational, but open it up and you see game-like design everywhere. You earn gems, unlock streaks, and climb leaderboards. When you're out of hearts for mistakes, you either wait hours to try again or pay real money for instant progress. And the same is true for fitness apps, meditation apps, and even budgeting apps which use streaks, badges, and timers to keep you paying. What started with loot boxes is now more of a template for the digital economy. And to be clear, games are great. Games are not just mindless entertainment. They give people something real, as digital as they are. They give escape, connection, and just a sense of joy. When life feels overwhelming, whether it be life or work, a game can pull you out of that stress. For a few hours, you don't think about bills, deadlines, or arguments. You think about building a city, finishing a quest, or winning a match with your friends. And that escape matters, and it's a break your brain sometimes needs. And there's also a sense of community. Multiplayer worlds connect people all across countries and cultures. For a lot of players, their closest friendships happen inside these digital spaces, and even become real physical ones. And in some cases, games help people fight loneliness when real life becomes isolating. And gaming sharpens your brain, problem solving, strategy, teamwork. All of these you use in games. Research shows that modern gaming can improve memory, reaction time, and focus. It can even reduce stress levels, giving players an outlet that helps them cope with anxiety or depression. What I'm saying is that gaming itself isn't the problem. It's more about how companies have turned joy into a business model that constantly pushes you to spend. And that itself is the real issue. The fun and the benefits are still there, but a lot of times they're being outweighed financially by a system designed to monetize your attention. And from the publisher's perspective, this is perfect. Revenue flows continuously instead of spiking only at a launch. They can continuously receive revenue, and shareholders love predictable growth. And that is why companies design games to sell you on future payments rather than a single product. But you, the player, lose financial control. You can budget for a $70 game, but it's harder to budget for endless small changes triggered by this system. And because these charges feel optional, a lot of people don't track them as carefully as they would the rent or car payment. And that is how you overspend. And to be clear, you don't need to delete every game on your phone or throw out your console. You just need tools to stop microtransactions from draining your wallet without you noticing. Like anything in life, it's about moderation and balance. So one thing to consider is set a budget. Treat in-game purchases like entertainment spending, which is no different from going to the movies or eating out. And decide how much you can afford each month. Say $25 and stick to it. Also consider the 50-30-20 rule, where 50% of your income goes to your needs like rent or groceries, 30% goes to your wants or limited edition skin, and 20% to saving and investing. And once you hit that cap, that's it until the next month. And this turns endless charges into a predictable, manageable cost. And next, switch to prepaid options. Consider loading gift cards with your monthly gaming budget. These basically act like debit cards. When the balance runs out, you're done. They create a hard stop that protects you from overspending. And of course, wait for buying or use the 24-hour rule. Most offers in games are designed to feel urgent, limited time only, which creates this immediate emotional response. But the reality is that new offers roll out constantly, and for some games each and every day. So give yourself 24 hours before you make a purchase. If you still want it tomorrow, then maybe it's worth it. And of course, focus on long-term value. A lot of times purchases focus on the here and now. Buy this battle pass now, or buy this skin now. Instead of focusing purely on the now, focus on long-term value. Use that money to invest in things that actually improve your life, like savings, debt repayment, or even a bigger purchase you'll use for years. The same $300 you spend on microtransactions could cover a part of an emergency fund or a weekend trip that you'll remember longer than a cosmetic skin. Let's say you spend $50 a month on in-game purchases. That's $600 a year. If you invested that instead in an index fund earning 7% annually after 10 years, you'd have $8,300. After 20 years, almost $25,000. After 30 years, over $60,000. All from cutting back on digital outfits and loot boxes. Gaming serves as an escape for a lot of people, and that's perfectly fine. But so does financial freedom. Does money solve all of life's problems? Not really, but it does solve the problems that do require money. And again, games aren't evil. They've created communities and give people countless hours of fun and joy. But the problem comes with all the additional transactions. It doesn't mean you stop playing games. It means you treat them with the same financial awareness you'd bring to shopping or dining out. So if you pay attention to how much you spend on skins, loot boxes, or streak savers, you might be surprised. And then you can decide if it's all worth it. And do ask yourself, is the money you're spending bringing real lasting joy? Or are you chasing a feeling that fades once the next new skin comes out? Gaming is a business, a powerful, emotional, nostalgic one. And honestly, they don't care about your happiness only as long as it keeps bringing in profit. So you don't owe them your paycheck or your peace of mind. And at the end of the day, it's capitalism, consumerism, and overconsumption. And of course, there are thousands of games out there that don't have any in-game purchases or paywalls. But do consider Stardew Valley, The Witcher, and Breath of the Wild. And that's it. Let me know what you think about video games and this consumer culture we live in that's quietly draining our lives and wallets in the comments below. And if you enjoy videos like this blend of consumerism, pop culture, and finance, please leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any other videos. Thank you very much for watching. And if we zoom out, it's not just video games. We live in a world where everything is just luring us in with dopamine. So check out the next video on how, just like video games, Disney uses emotional marketing and nostalgia to keep you spending money without thinking.